drive-by, guys. Casablanca.
I want to do I want to do a drive-by shit. I think the only person who's probably seen Casablanca here is probably John.
What?
I've seen it.
I've seen it.
Whoa!
I've seen it.
I've seen
Okay,
it.
wait. Nobody say anything. Nobody say anything. Brody say what he's gonna say about it.
Well, Casablanca is the perfect movie that intersects in this world of mine where I, A, was getting into movies, and B, thought I knew anything, right? So, Casablanca, and it was also the first thing that got me into and me developing some sort of like pseudo-identity in my late teenage years of old Hollywood, Golden Age Hollywood flicks, okay? But also of like film analysis and believing that I was capable of film analysis. So the amount of like, and I've seen it probably 10 times, okay? Like, and I've taken film classes in community college where we've watched it again and then have done analysis on it. The amount of reaching people are doing for Casablanca, the amount of grasping, there's a term for this, but grasping at nothing.
Straws.
Grasping at straws, yeah. Grasping at
There is a term for this, I believe.
Yeah, this is why I'm not the analysis guy, right? Alright, everybody have a laugh.
Sorry, please continue.
No, everybody have a laugh. It's funny. It's funny. It's funny. Everybody have a laugh.
It doesn't invalidate what you're saying.
It's more the reaction and the whole whatever. You're not invalidated by what you're saying.
No, not at all.
It's a cozy, good movie, dude. This analysis that people are doing is fucking crazy.
Okay, listen, I do think that there is, in the same way that Citizen Kane is like endlessly jerked off, but I will say that I think so there is a sentiment that I do totally agree with, but I think that, you know, the very, very last statement you made, I have to veer because
you're taking the exit.
I think Casablanca is actually fucking like really good. Like watching it, I feel it feels.
I like it. I like Casablanca. But that's exactly my point. That is exactly my point.
But you said like this cozy thing or something, you know, where it's like okay, yeah, it is cozy, but it's also like I think it is far beyond cozy, like as far as quality. Like,
I think it's a great movie that is not worthy of the depth of analysis that it's being given, right?
Well, so it could be the case that there's too much analysis going on. I could believe that to some degree, but I mean, when you watch it, you know you're watching like a really great film. You're not just watching a cozy thing that you're gonna forget. Like it's just another. It's not like Moonrise Kingdom, you know. But like I mean, this thing's crazy good when you're watching it, and also and you should rewatch it. Like it's really good. And not to I'm not gonna spit. I think I kind of remember the Zizek take, and I'm not gonna say that, but the simple fact of the matter, which is, you really have no clue. Like there's a feeling when you're watching the film where you're like, what choices are you going to make? You really don't know. Mm-hmm. And it's a movie where like...
It is true.
That's like so like rare these days. Where like you as an audience member have fucking no clue. Because both sides are like... multiple angles are given such credibility to them. Where as you could buy into he picks X decision, you know? That you're like... You know, but of course, and then the ZJ take is like, but after the fact, it's the perfect ending because it quilts it all together, yada yada. But like it can only be that way is how it feels after you've seen it, whatever. But when you're watching it, I don't know, it's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, it's not. I mean, I think the thing you said that then you said whatever. I think is still important though to being like the fact that both are true when watching, you know. Mm-hmm. Is actually that is the point as opposed to being not just the first part, because the first part is something like I don't know, there's some kind of like, you know, gray morality, this, that, the other, and they choose something and then it's mildly disappointing because it's like some kind of but not to, I mean, whatever. I'm agreeing with you, but just refining.
Like if no, I know what you're saying. the first part to that point, it's like you would feel cheated if it was just a gray morality thing, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Versus at the end, you don't fall in that, and you don't feel cheated at all, as a viewer.
Yeah, I think Casablanca. It's also, I think, a huge part of that whole like what will he do quality is also like brought about by being like, this kind of like grounded historical thing too. Like there's kind of like a sort of there is it is like this perfect amount of like both realness and this heightened narrative aspect, with like the look and the feel and the dialogue, but also this very kind of real world stakes sort of things going on. There's like this kind of, it feels very romantic without feeling like it's romanticizing. And it's like, I don't know, it's fucking so good. But I don't know, but all this being said, which it's funny because I feel like I could actually probably talk about Casablanca, analyzing it for a very long time, but it doesn't necessarily mean I disagree with what Brody's saying, because I think that it's like what happens is it's like Citizen Kane, where it's like you reach a point of like saturation with takes where it's like obviously the majority are going to start to either be superfluous or bad because it is so it's like this cultural touchstone and all this stuff, and is like kind of this thing that like you are expected to analyze or something like that.
There's also a form of analysis that I think is like bad. So like
the curtains are blue, so it's sad.
Like that kind. Okay. Good. Oof, I thought I was gonna have to stumble around on a rant for 15 minutes, but you summed it up very well. Thank you, John.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, but all that analysis is so true.
I mean, it is. Yeah, but it is so true. But it's like, I think the problem is that it is so fucking boring, because it's not necessarily. It's not just that the curtains are blue. It's that you feel that the curtains are blue, and so then it suddenly becomes boring to even point it out outside of just like pointing it out, rather than to talk about like the genius of the curtains being blue, or the genius of putting the camera underneath the floor in Citizen Kane
and
to make them monstrous.
Something that like
it's more about
a lot of like analysis, well, I'll just say it, like, YouTube analysis, right, is that they feel like everything that is being pointed out and being done is like with an extremely conscious effort by the director, and there is such things as, and a lot of things, and hell, even most things, right, is conscious understanding and intention by the director, but I think it forgoes the director's capability to vibe it out, let's say, to feel as though, and to let his intuition guide him towards decision making, that I think is underrated in analysis and can only be done retrospectively, and the person who I see does it the best is someone like Zizek, right? For something like classically Titanic, right? Which is like that, the analysis that Zizek does with Titanic is something that I feel as though is operating unconsciously and culturally, but his analysis is extremely true and valid, as distinct from the curtains are blue. Like, this is, the director has an all-seeing eye. Their vision is like perfect, kind of thing.
I do think I think that what you're saying is true, but I think that like there's actually a further thing going on where it's not necessarily that it's not necessarily attributing intention, because I think that there are a lot of directors who are extremely intentional and like aware of the effect that they're having on the audience, but the way in which you experience, it's more about like the analysis puts a primacy on like the power being in the fact that it was intentional, when it's like, the thing is that even if it was intentional, what matters and what the director cares about is the experiential aspect of it, even if it was like vibes-based decision or intuition as opposed to intentional. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like the...
so let me put it this way. Like, I don't really... Unless we're just, like, saying that, like, a poorly written analysis sucks, which just feels kind of... Like, a formal analysis where you're talking about, like, the mise-en-scene You're talking about what is the effect produced by having the camera under the floorboards. That can be a powerful and interesting thing to talk about. And I don't think that it doesn't even rely on a conscious intention, though you can talk about it that way if you want. And maybe that can be annoying when they over jerk off certain things, but like that's just kind of a vibe. But ultimately, all that matters is that they talk about the effect, and I don't know what analysis is going on that's not doing that. In fact,
no, sorry.
Days,
I think what's going. I think the first thing, like what you started saying at the beginning of what you just said, is actually correct. Like we're kind of just at this point complaining about like analysis sucking that sucks because it sucks. Like rather than it's like we're really talking about just like YouTube video essays where they're like the camera's under the floor and
I'm like it's like as he comes in and then you could see the look on his face, which the face, it's both happy and sad, but you don't know. And then he takes a sip of his drink, but you could see when he puts it down, he gives a slight like fucking whatever. Like fuck you, fuck you.
Yeah, I think you're.
We are just saying bad analysis is bad.
What Brody just talked. Yeah, fuck whoever talks like that. Hell yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, this is bad analysis.
It is like we are having like an extremely reactionary take when we were like.
That's my thing.
Talking about like analysis.
That's
as,
my
like,
thing.
As being cringe or something when we're actually just saying like people who have bad opinions have bad opinions. Like.
Well, I think that an interesting thing was being brought up nonetheless about talking about analysis and talking about John. You're talking about how much the emphasis is placed on whether or not something was an intentional choice versus just a sort of an intuition or something. And I guess, I mean, like this has already sort of been resolved, but I feel like the beauty of good analysis, or the beauty of analysis, it's pretty obvious. Like, there doesn't even have to be any intention behind the thing that you're analyzing. Like, you have as much freedom as the creator to, like, sort of synthesize whatever meaning you want. I mean, that's the whole point. That's the whole kind of thing that everyone enjoys.
It's like
art, right?
identifying relationships of meaning, like like systems.
Like everyone has a different, like subjective.
Yeah, I mean, like
stance that they're bringing to that thing, and they can extract from it what they want, and sort of build this image.
Sure.
And like it could be, but I mean, I feel like that is sort of related to like. So when you hate on someone saying curtains are blue, therefore sad, like, yes, it's kind of like a low-hanging style of analysis, right? To just sort of try to paint these direct relationships. But I mean, at the same time, I don't know, like, I think I'm going to take Team Libtard here and say that, you're free to just do whatever you want.
I mean, I don't know. I think that whatever you say about art, I mean, we're not going to ever arrive at some perfect objectivity, obviously. But the important thing is that because a conversation about art is mediated by an object that is, now with an asterisk, we can get into idealism discussions if wanted, but like is mediated by a semi-static object that we are all seeing, we bring to it different things, of course, but now we look at it, we intake it, and we talk about it, and this allows for certain, because of our communal relationship to this thing, we get to, as a culture, become, as a social system, and as a spirit of understanding, together.
Yeah.
We get to decide whether or not that's a correct or wrong take in a pseudo-objective manner, objective with asterisk. So I don't know if you're saying, because I don't know if you're saying this, but like I'm not into a relativist, radical subjectivist. Like it's what you want it to be. I want.
Well, I'm not saying. Well, it might have
position.
sounded like I was going that far. I'm not saying just complete relativism per se, but just that if you, if what you glean from something is just like a more shallow version of something else that someone would glean from it, like you still are capturing for the most part the essence of, whatever it is that you feel like that piece of art's communicating, but it's just you're doing it. I don't know. It just seems like.
I think I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and the curtains being blue thing is just an example, but I mean, I'm just identifying how
there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with identifying those things. I think that we actually haven't, and I don't think we actually. I mean, I don't want to keep talking about this, but it's like the reason why the YouTube essay thing sucks is not actually the fact that they point the things out that they do. It's more about, I think, probably, there is nothing more than them pointing it out, and then it gets like extremely wishy-washy, and then it's like it becomes aggravating more so it's more so about the fact that that is what is popular, and you build this whole idea of like this is what people think it is to watch a film and to interpret it and to make it personal and stuff, rather than what it actually is to do that, and so
you're just saying that the significance is to sort of just find these little Easter eggs and weave a little narrative together about how the presentation
even if it's
is
totally
lending itself
true.
to something like that. You're saying that people view it as like that is the process. Like
that is that, not just that is the process, but like that is what like a deeper viewing and discussion of a film and analysis of a film or whatever. That is what the and that's why it's like that's why this guy is a genius, because he did these things, and like because he intended that the curtains were blue, and it's like it just well, obviously true. I think the frustration is less at the actual content of the take or the analysis, and more at what it signifies culturally, or not necessarily culturally, just like what it signifies about how people think about films, and the depth of that, and the what's et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think a big thing is just I think people, when they're exploring film and they want to get into it and art in general, they watch those things, and the problem, like, unironically, and not to be cringe, but like these people making these videos, I'm sure they like to make them, and they start out with just awesome intentions of wanting to make cool vids.
Yeah.
But it gets to a point where they just they're making a career off of these vids, and they're gonna just really gravitate to enjoyable, easygoing, smooth listening takes that are like kind of the low-hanging fruit. They're not, toiling away at coming up with a novel concept that unifies all of these different formal elements and content, that's conceptual elements being presented in the film, and then so there's like there's a productivity motive. I'm really sounding like a Marxist here, but not at all. But like, there is really just a productivity motive that helps like to really, churn this over and this industry of YouTube analysis,
Right. It's just, I guess it just encourages people to look at film as like a puzzle that you need to like figure out.
Yes.
And then it's like, oh, I see the piece. The piece goes over here, and that's how it is.
And then,
I think that's
good movies are the ones with the most pieces, like the biggest.
I think that's probably, like, the way you just said it is like, that is not necessarily even what the people who are making a lot of those videos think about movies, but it is the level of take that they're having in the analyses basically is this kind of one-to-one symbolic relationship or whatever, and puzzle piece fit together, director intend, this mean genius sort of like thing that like I think that they, like it's like even if they don't say that, well, they'll literally say that, but then it's like even if they think that there's more to it than that, which that's the thing. I think a lot of people watch films and they experience something seriously powerful that's extremely complicated. Like people who aren't even really that into movies, will go watch movies and experience this huge feeling of this, that, the other, and then and then you go watch a YouTube video essay, and there is kind of, I think, to some degree, like a door being kind of closed on like sort of like it's like kind of like, because a lot of the time the video essays, what they do is they discuss a certain thing and they do this puzzle piece talk, and then they have like the last like fourth of it is dedicated to them just kind of like very wishy-washy, like spiritual, beyond I am, like there's just kind of like, it's like they leave this realm of like, okay, now there's just this completely inexplicable nature of the film that I just love, that like I basically am not going to talk about because no one can talk about it. And then that's what everybody thinks, like what everybody thinks how it is. And it's like it's just kind of depressing that it's like you talk to people about movies and it's so awesome when people connect with things, but it's kind of sad when it's like, oh, well, the reason why is because puzzle piece, and not like struggling to actually try to understand and connect with, well, why did this get, into me, why did this...
I had to unlearn YouTube analysis. So, like, because that's when I was first getting the movies, that was... The YouTube analysis ran entirely parallel to my watching experience. It was movie into YouTube analysis video, like, minutes apart. I would be watching the movie being excited about the analysis video that I was going to watch later.
True.
And at the peak of my, like, horrifyingness is this genius subtlety or happy accidents, rainbow lens flares, and Eyes Wide Shut. This is a 5-minute video analyzing lens flares in Eyes Wide Shut. Okay?
Well, that sounds base, though. Like, that sounds, like, cool. Like, I'd watch that. Like, watching, like, analyzing lens flares. Because I'm, like, from, like, a cinematography perspective.
After 20 minute grand
No, I'm not. I'm just going to say, from a cinematography perspective, it's like, you're choosing, like, particular... I mean, I could talk about the lens flares and, like, Punch Drunk Love or something.
I totally understand what you mean. I just want to say, but then I totally understand what you mean. This isn't the best example, but of this thing. And then I had to unlearn and then relearn. I had to unlearn and then reintegrate it back into me. Perfect. And now I'm perfect.
And now I am the perfect.
Now I understand things perfectly.
Destroy, erase, rebuild.
Yeah. The sublate. The two things. One, funny story about Troy. Early on into my introduction to the world of Kino, Troy, I remember he and I went to college together, undergrad together, as well as others in this chat, but I don't know, whatever. We went to a theater and we watched No Country for Old Men. It was my first viewing. And No Country for Old Men is an awesome film, and it's not like you can do a ton of analysis if you'd like. It's a great film, but it's not that confusing. It's like, there's elements I'm sure you could find confusing, but it's not like a Lynch film, which we also did this with, so that's why I preface it that way. But instantly, finished the film, literally instantly queued up, Troy puts on No Country for Old Men analysis, and it's like an hour and a half, so it's not like a 10-minute poo-poo video essay, but it is like a 1 hour and a half of like mostly nudising, maybe a little bit of other stuff,
Nudising,
and we're just sitting there
so
watching
funny,
it.
Dude.
Like
awesome.
look at the windmills in the back. There's only think about when they're moving. They're not spinning
Dude,
anymore.
I
And
think-
it's like, well, that's fine, okay, cool, but like, look,
Dude,
that's not what I care about after I finish the movie.
Yeah.
That part. I had a different thing to say, but go on. Maybe I forgot it, so maybe I'll remember.
No, I was gonna say listening to Roger Deakins talk about shooting No Country for Old Men. I don't know. It's like you get an impression of like the, and also okay. So just on Roger Deakins' podcast that he has, like he just talks about the Coen brothers. Just because he's worked with them so much, just like every once in a while they talk about the Coen brothers in some in the films they worked on. And like the more I hear about the Coen brothers and like also watch interviews with them and also like listen to Roger Deakins talk, the more the what Brody was saying about like vibes based thing is like there's obviously, I mean, it sounds like there's definitely like a very thoroughly explored and talked through approach of like the visual language of like No Country. But this is once again back to the main point. When you're watching the film, I mean, whatever. Sorry, Steven, you look like you're gonna blow up. You can say what you're gonna say.
No, I just remembered what I was going to say, so I just didn't want to. I wanted to be next in line. If you wanted to finish your thought. go
No,
for
I
it.
don't know.
If you
I'm
want
just
to
gonna say that what's interesting to me. So I'm coming from like a very technical perspective of like I do this for my job. Like
Doxed.
So doxed.
Doxed.
Absolutely doxed. No, so I do this for my job. So it's like
John makes
I'm
ads for
very
Kamala
very
Harris
interested
campaign.
in like decisions like with the lens flare thing. It's like, well, what lenses did you shoot on and why? And like and that questioning is like there's a lot of reasons why you choose to shoot on certain lenses, a certain camera, why you would choose to frame things in this way or that way, etc. That range from extremely technical to totally just artistic, like it felt right, etc. So it's like, to me, the breaking down of like looking at a sequence or something like that from No Country and being like picking it apart. I think that a lot of the time what you're talking about, this whole like nudicing thing, Steven, with like No Country, it's like you can notice things all you want, but it doesn't actually really get much at the actual mindset of someone who is making the damn thing, which I'm not putting necessarily like the person who's making it and their intention on a pedestal necessarily, but I am saying that their mindset is closer to one that like gets at the things that quote unquote matter than somebody who is noticing things after the fact, just because like the transition from intentionality to intuition and technicality to like artistic is like so much smoother, and there's less of this kind of like, I don't know, just wishy-washy, like the windmills, I don't know, whatever. It's like, sure, but fucking who cares,
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry, I don't know if any of that was fucking.
No, that made sense. I think I'm trying to give my explanation for why this is. I mean, look, I think ultimately these video essays, they're not like in themselves like corrupt or bad, as we've already kind of seemed to pseudo agree. Right, we're all kind of in agreement. It's more like the effect they have. But I think what causes this for film is that I don't know if anyone here took art history in high school. But if you did, or if you ever took a class like that in college, but also even if you don't, you kind of just know this. If you've ever like cared about a painting and other things like that, all people drill into you is basically the formal elements and maybe some historical significance, like the context. Both of those are totally fair and interesting and important. No one ever in these introductory courses, maybe you get to giga stages and you get to like some awesome stuff, maybe in niche academia, okay, cool. No one in their entry levels of the field of study of art gets anything to this higher order like conceptual synthesis of all the elements at work. And they and they let you, they think they're like, here, write an essay about it and tell us what you think. Dude, no one knows how to do it because no one is reading how it's done. It's literally just not in education at all. No one is taught about art. Like even in like English class, they just kind of give you the book, you read it, you give your take. You don't even like, no one actually helps you understand how to give a take and what constitutes a good take, because that's a really dangerous thing to do. Not like dangerous as in like, who's to say? You know, art is just, everyone's like, oh, it's all subjective. Not like consciously, it's not like everyone's saying that, although a lot of teachers, I think, unfortunately, literally would say that. But that's besides the point. It's more like we don't have a good system for teaching kids about art, but also when you finally do give them classes where they're taught about art, like art history, it fucking sucks. Like, it literally is just the most basic formal element, and that stuff is important to learn. You kind of have to develop a lexicon. You got to develop the jargon, the terms. You know, you want to be familiar.
Yeah.
But there's no one and nowhere culturally are you provided that. You have to be on your own, exploring ideas and art and really pushing through and really caring about it. Not just going to the movie like once a month. Like, you have to kind of really care to even get to that level. You know,
you really have to reach the level of cultural, like, consumption. So it's like this, like, you know, so this is like maybe an analog for what you're talking about, but this is like an important aspect that is like very much an artistic thing that is like super important to how I think a lot of like artists think about things, especially in film, but it is not necessarily this exact concept, but is like similar, which is this kind of cross-disciplinary thing or something like that, which is like a lot of the time in kind of the filmmaking space, the people who really know what they're doing, they're describing things through, you know, I want this to, like, this is the most basic way that I think a lot of people can relate to, which basically it's like this scene, like the way this looks, or this music video, or this scene looks the way that this song sounds. You know, something like that. It's like, or there's like some aspect of, you know, some musical thing that can be applied to something visual. And there's like you know, the reason for why that works, first of all, recognizing that you can do that, and then recognizing why that works, I think is like this type of thing, because this type of thing I think is like something that is basically I think the way in which this relates to what you're saying, Stephen, is that, I mean, not just, I mean, in like a completely literal sense, I think this is like part of this kind of like not learning about how to consume art or think about art and stuff. But I also think just in the sense of like, you know, if you know, that's in a very kind of like visceral, kind of almost like phenomenological, like natural, like, or not natural, but, you know, like implicit way of how you think about things. But it's like, I think if you reach like kind of a more conceptual level, it's the same kind of thing, where it's like kind of this ability to like abstract and apply things from other ways of thinking, from other, you know, things over here and over there, and how it's like these things actually are connected, you know. Just, I don't know. This.
I want to keep building on this take.
Go ahead.
This is a big, I mean, it's sort of obliquely getting at what grinds my gears about a lot of the films that we consume for this pod, where a lot of the film TM, like the subject matter is about art, you know, like straight up, and it's about the production of art, and so the plot or whatever will be about a struggling director or a musician or a poet or something. And I don't know, I feel like the reason why that kind of grinds my gears is I just feel like there's a lot of like, in order to actually have good analysis and like good takes about art, I feel like it requires a lot of general knowledge about just the world and different disciplines and like different ways of being. Like, so much art analysis and like and critique of it comes from an angle of like, I've been studying this for 10 years, and like it just like comes from the perspective of art, and I don't know, it's just that never really, like, there's value in that, but I think that there's way, I usually find way more value in like analysis that comes at something from like a very broad background. And I think that's why something like a Zizek's takes on stuff are like, are so fun and novel and like really get the noggin jogging, is because he'll take some subject matter and make like an analogy to like McDonald's or something, and and it's just like, it not only is it a way for you to like bring in the reader or the viewer of like your analysis, but I don't know, like I just liked what you said about this sort of interdisciplinary process of making something and how that adds a lot of value to the production of like so like the creative act, as opposed to just being a real like studied person who knows all the techniques and everything. It's like I feel like, and I've sort of experienced this in my personal life of, I've just I enjoy, it's fun to like read about, I don't know, like just some random thing, and like now you have that little piece of knowledge that you can kind of splice in somewhere else. I don't know.
Well,
I think that's so true.
Yeah,
John, I think that's so true.
yeah. I think it's like this abstract or like subterranean thing that is like the reason why it actually is interesting or actually is good or actually matters to you.
Yeah.
That is, it is like underneath the surface. It is like a truly abstract quality. That is
as an example,
is what connects it to other things.
Yeah, as an example, I've enjoyed recently a lot. I've enjoyed reading about shipwrecks and like ships lost at sea, and just like the records of like their last like voyage and like what the details were, and I don't know, just like weird stuff like that. But I just feel it's just here's my real take. We're taking the table, we're swiping our arm across the table, and we're swiping everything on the floor, and we're starting from scratch. Here's the real take, okay? People used to be learned, okay? People used to have general knowledge about a variety of different subjects. Okay, now you have fucking experts, okay? And so now in academia or in art or film or whatever, you have these people who are so their head is so far up their own ass, so to speak, with all their techniques and their lingo and their and their in-group vocab, they can't see the big picture, okay? You used to have people who, when they made art, they were a Renaissance man, okay? They liked fly fishing, they liked sculpting, they liked
sex,
carrot salad. Now you have a so-called artist, they like Ugg boots, they like avocado toast, and they like exposed brick wall. That's about all they like. They like the lifestyle component, but they are not real human beings.
I
agree.
Well, I feel like I will say there is something to be said, as someone there happens
As
to
an-
be
as an
a
expert
real
myself.
as someone who happens to know somebody who happens to be in this call who is in the academic world. Stephen, would you like to both agree and disagree with what Jacob is saying?
No, I mean, I think I kind of mostly agree. I think
Yeah. Well, I don't know. But hold on, just stand by. I was just gonna say,
stand
think
by.
about
All right,
the-
air support standing by.
stand by.
Listen,
thing-
people used to be generalists.
No,
I
no, no,
mean,
sorry.
Let's
The only thing
not fuck
sorry.
around here.
The only thing I was going
Let's
to
not fuck
push
around.
back on is that there is something to be said about there being when you are talking about these kind of subterranean, like very abstract qualities that do connect these things. It's like if you're going to describe them accurately, it's like it becomes incredibly difficult to do so without like basically building like systems of thinking that like require jargon, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not. But that doesn't. But
Sure, you
I'm not.
need
I'm not
jargon,
agreeing. I'm not disagreeing with basically anything else you're saying. Like
You need jargon, but I mean, the fact of the matter, it's not even about the jargon. It's about
Yeah.
people conceive of themselves as they're choosing a class, and now that's their identity.
Also,
okay?
also,
I
they're
agree.
becoming.
No, I agree.
also,
I agree.
jargon.
They
jargon
are. They are a writer.
Jargon
They are.
familiarity is not mean expert, right? Like,
They are an expert.
Well, no. Well, to refine
Hi, my
that,
name is
it
Jacob,
does not
I'm an
mean
expert.
it does not mean your interpretations are any good.
that too.
Yeah.
No, but I think ultimately though, I think worldly experience is super important. I think that's true. You know, classic. You just need to get out in that world, kid, and you'll appreciate art more. I think that's actually that's a good truism. I think it's fair. And I agree with a lot of what Jacob's saying. I also think that unless you are a giga elite fucking god tier based like Renaissance man, like a truly giga person that history might remember, like a lot of times like people they don't have time to think about art, like and just like it just doesn't really appeal to them, and it's hard to really get people to care outside of. I mean, these days it's different with the internet, of course, so anyone can find and have like a cursory interest and like develop it. But even back in the day, like it's hard to really develop an appreciation for art outside of the scholastic world, you know, because like just no one else is gonna feel the same way as you, because the average person, you know, like I just don't think that's true. I think it's like an ivory tower thing. For all of history, kind of like art has always been kind of an elite thing, you know.
Sure, but that is. I don't think that has anything. Here's what I think. So all I'm trying to say is that Mo experience means that you have a greater well of like information and things to pull from whenever you are looking at something. And art as a discipline may be like an ivory tower thing. You know, you're not going to have the proles writing columns for some magazine analyzing whatever, because that they go and seek out novel experiences. All I'm saying is that it is true for everyone that the more experience you have, just the greater opportunity. I just feel like that is better for people to come to more of an appreciation for art than it is to learn about the discipline and like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It like, because I'll see a dog walking and like a bird will fly past it, and then like something will trigger my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so eternally true. Like, I'm now going to sit on a park bench and cry.
I think that's pretty true. But I think art is obviously for everyone. The experience of art is for everyone, and I agree with the experience component that you're emphasizing. But it's only because this was adjacent to the idea of art criticism and art analysis, which was the previous conversation, kind of, and adjacent to not just understanding or not just analysis and critique, but like there's understanding. And so appreciating more art requires more experience. I think that's true. I think and it's a vital tool to have the experience, but understanding art, also requires its own study, and that's all I'm advocating for. And like that is difficult to get from just worldliness, unless you're a very unique kind of person.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
That's true.
Yeah, I think that
Very
kind of
true.
gets back at the YouTube essay thing where it's like we actually, I don't know, I think we were specifically trying to emphasize that it's like, the person watching it, almost certainly had like a connection with it, and that the issue is the analysis and not necessarily like an inability to connect with the art. Because then they, it's like this, when they start to describe it, they hit this point of wishy-washiness. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there is something interesting about, there is something interesting with the appreciation part of it, with like the kind of like, I mean, I don't know. We keep using this kind of vague, like, experience thing, which I'm, willing to totally subscribe to and agree with everything everyone said about it. But there is an aspect where it's like, there is kind of a, I mean, I don't actually even know how accurate this is. I mean, I guess, like, Jacob, you were talking more about this, like, there used to be, there's more of just kind of a general familiarity with some sort of, like, art history or art as something that is a part of, your life, and this, that, the other. But there is something...
Well, I think that people just... Sorry, I totally...
I'll be very quick. Just basically, there is something interesting about people. People will have a lot of life experience, and I feel like art has kind of further and further. I mean, due to a lot of the things that you're complaining about like what it means to be somebody who understands art, and like that being something that is kind of known even to people who don't give a shit about art, and especially actually to people who don't give a shit about art, because art, it kind of takes on, this form of like, basically the form of art that they interact with is, essentially entertainment. And that like, there's like somebody who goes fly fishing and loves to be in the water and has this kind of moment of like the thing you're talking about, like the dog and the bird or something, but like, they're fly fishing and they have this kind of, very perfect little moment that is like, so, totally something that's like captured by so much art. This person, there's no reason, there's kind of like no reason why they actually would take art seriously or give a shit about it at all, or even feel anything when reading it, watching it, etc., etc., because of how removed the kind of overall cultural, like how people silo art is like fucking insane. Like how it does not just bleed into things the way that it does once you like, I mean, I never had that barrier, honestly, just because I grew up in like a very artistic household. But it's like for a lot of people, it's like, and for most people, it's like, it's like, you're trying to get like your cousin or your whatever to like watch some movie that will like fucking break that barrier for them, which is like, it's the fact that barrier exists is, I think, kind of insane. Like, I feel like it is kind of like, it is pretty interesting that is like such an extreme leap for so many people, and it's like not their fault, I don't know, obviously.
I feel like I was trying to speak to that a little bit, because I mean, something else that I feel is just people take art as like a given, and I was one of those people where I don't know how to describe it perfectly, but it's like that this thing just exists. It's almost as if I can draw it like by analogy, like when you look at your door, you don't think about the fact that like hundreds of people dedicated thousands of hours to like designing the like which screws are going to be used and like how it's going to be shaped and like the cuts in it and how the doorknob works. Like, this is a massive feat of engineering, like just your door, right? but like you kind of just use it, and it's like you don't think about it, right? And like I felt the same way about, I guess, in this example, film for a long time, of like it's just something that kind of exists and like it's for entertainment purposes, but there's nothing really behind the veil. Like there's nothing going, like you're not thinking about all the things going on, which is why the YouTube analysis is so addicting, because it that's one of those things that pierces the veil and gets people to wake up a little bit and say, hold on, there is a little bit of an intentionality going on here. There is like craftsmanship, and they start to get an appreciation for that. So when you talk about the experiences, I'm not like, I feel like I want to hone in a little bit more. Like experiences in general, okay, might help with appreciating art, but I feel like we're talking about specific experiences in terms of how those, not how it's made in like a physical sense, but sort of like the nuts and bolts of like the symbology and like the just getting a feel for some of that intention. I don't know. I'm straying into being pretty vague, but I kind of lost steam. But
no. I mean, no. I think it's not even necessarily like intention. Like, because I think the obvious line to draw is you have all the engineers and this, that, the other, and the engineers who built the machines that build the thing. But if you think about that in the sense of like a film, you immediately, rather than thinking, there's obviously this like heavy material aspect to the door being created. But then if you replace that with like, if you think about like, what are the, machines in terms of culture and thought and ideas and stuff that then produced the materials that are used to manufacture the film that somebody decided to use this particular, type of wood, through this particular, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the I don't know. There's obviously, I mean, I don't know. There's something funny to say about like the mass producing of movies or something, which, is like, with the door versus like, like a Marvel movie or something, where it's like you think about the cultural machines that produce, I use the word machines, but it's like machines obviously doesn't actually capture what I'm saying. I'm just saying like, the things that produced the thoughts that were required to have and be normalized, or this, that, the other, to then like grab them and put them together and then produce the film. You know what I mean? Like this is like the not even necessarily like, and I feel like the YouTube essay thing is like kind of like, it's just like the buck stops at like the director's intentionality or something like that, rather than like, well, the director's intentionality is made up of all this shit, and then it's like the most, like the deepest version of that in the video essay world is something like this like psychologizing or something. I would say, oh, well, they meant this, that, the other because they're whatever, they bad relationship with their father, etc.
I also think, I don't know, the thing that I think is interesting is like, at least this is how I experienced it, was like, before you really have that revelation that film is this thing that's made up of all these parts, conceptual parts, and there's intention and all that, like, it is almost just like it doesn't even exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
before
totally.
before you think about like a door, like actually what a door is, like it is almost as if it does not exist, right? It is just something that you kind of deal with, but you have no like conceptual model of it.
It's like almost purely like phenomenological. Like you're just like, it's just in the way, and you open and you use it. It doesn't like I mean, I know what you're saying.
So that's kind of how I felt with film for a while until like there's that initial like whatever you have an experience of watching Kino or something. But it's like it's just like this is not real.
Yeah, no, I know, no, I know. I feel like there's probably a better way of saying it that describes what you're saying better. But I mean, I think everyone knows what you're saying. It is crazy. Like you have adults who like go and watch movies, and they have opinions about actors, but essentially they're basically interacting with films in the same way you were when you were 10 years old or whatever, you know. But it's like they do, you know, they obviously have an idea of like, you know, they've seen behind the scenes stuff. They know a lot of people are involved. You know that a director made it and stuff. But at the same time, but that's what I'm saying is like with what you're saying is like there is something more to it about what you're saying that isn't so much just this knowledge of it being something that's made. There's something that carries over to somebody who does know that but still treats it as such. You know, I don't really know how you describe that.
Mm-hmm.
I work with some people who are deep in the anime game.
The anime game.
And
Anime market.
they're anime, and they talk about anime a lot. And they are the classic 30 years old classic millennial kind of person, right? Just imagine them. And they love talking about anime, about this character. I liked it when this character had like this power, but then when he did this, like that was awesome. These fight scenes are really good, and when he now is like, oh, and now did you see he can do this now? But then that was after, like, it's very like child like crashing toys together, like pew pew kind of thing. You know, not to sound too demeaning to them, but like I just find it fascinating that this is the way that they're communicating with.
It's just like cause and effect.
It sounds like you're saying like it sounds like a big issue is like that it's like grounded too much in its own like too much in its like obvious parts of what it's made out of.
What's crazy is like the reason why they're so drawn to these specific animes is because they want to see like the powers. They like thinking about the powers and what they can do with the powers, right? Like this is the mode. This is what the anime likely is. And I just find it really fascinating that like they are even capable of having this discussion, I guess. And I don't know, this is just reminds me.
This is a resident hater Brody attacking
the
anime
it's yeah, like the anime for them is just like a means to fantasize about like how their life could be something's, I don't know, I'm psychologizing, but I'm trying to tie back into what we were talking about before. Like the anime is not art to them.
Exactly. It's
like,
not art.
It is
to
just
them.
like a product. It is like a pill.
Right.
They would call it art though.
Yeah,
we think it is art.
Yeah, and like
because art just means aesthetic.
Art is almost like more like a material category than it is conceptual.
Yeah. I mean, they would all. Well, I mean, they would.
I mean, I don't know. Sorry, that might be
way
too.
When they're watching the power-ups, like, dude, they're like crying.
Yeah.
And like, you don't want to just like invalidate that as like just poo-poo idiot mode.
Yeah.
Like they're, you know, look, if you boil it down to like, it was so cool when he had the blue flame. Like, look, that's annoying. But like, that's like so basic that like that it's actually rare. I mean, you can find anime talks like that, but no, most of the time it's like, dude, when he came back after that crazy thing, just classic hero's journey shit over on loop, hero's journey, and that is just, you know.
Well,
and that's like
also,
a primordial, you know, thing.
Also, I mean, you have the aesthetic quality. Yeah, I mean, you have like like going back to what you were saying way earlier about like the kind of experiential quality. You know, it's like they're talking about how crazy the power was, this, that, the other. When it's like, you know, if somebody just describes that to you, it's like, the level of, interest is, I mean, it's pretty hard to, actually invoke any kind of actual feeling of like caring about the blue flame. But but when you see it, I mean, that shit looks crazy. You know what I mean? Like it's like you like.
It is.
I mean,
it's like a sensory overload. It's insane.
Yeah, it is insane, and it's like I feel like that's. I mean, that's obviously in a extremely like that is a major part, if not like most of why that fucking hits is because they're describing the blue flame when it's like the thing that they're actually I mean, I don't know, you're just skipping over the actually interesting part, which is maybe like visually what's going on and what that does to you and where that comes from, as opposed to just. So that's what I was trying to say when Brody was saying, and I was saying like it's too grounded in them just talking about like the parts, or something like that. Is that it's like what they're actually the experience they're having, and the actual media in itself is not necessarily invalid or something like that, and there actually could be a lot of goodness to it, but it's just like there is something particularly it's more about this this parts thing, which I don't know, I don't like that analogy or the language, but I don't even know what I'm saying.
Another thing I find fascinating about what they do is a typical call it artistic movie will have its slow parts, and its slow parts are in service of a payoff. It's part of the pacing, right? And
YouTube analysis, bro.
And what they do is they're into these like really deep animes that are like a trillion episodes long or some shit, and they say, man, like, they'll watch literally like 5 hours of like boring content because of like one epic fight scene, and they'll say that content was boring. Like they'll straight up tell you like that shit was boring, but I watched it so I could see the fight scene, but it isn't.
Edging.
Yeah, exactly. They are intentionally edging themselves, and they are goated at doing it for basically months. And they go home and they'll watch it for 5 hours, and they'll do that every day. Like
sounds kind of good.
It's like this is my first time of getting real up close to these anime people. I've always heard about them. I knew they were kicking around and I knew they existed, but seeing one up close and in the wild is one of the most eye-opening experiences I've ever had.
But some of your closest friends are anime people.
No. They're the different vibe, dude. That shit.
They've seen them all.
Dude, I feel like they're just on some fucking crazy shit, the people I'm working with.
It's important to differentiate, though. We are not necessarily ragging on anime as a genre in general, but there is definitely.
Well, you can't speak for me, so
you also are.
I'm willing to go there.
Troy and Brody would love to say anime sucks.
I don't actually believe that, but I do like saying it for inflammatory effect.
But anime is obviously potentially super based and is a medium, so it's like just hating a medium is just stupid.
Yeah, I also agree with that.
Yeah, because Steven, you're a big fan of
certain animes.
There's
a few. Yeah, FLCL for all the listeners.
FLCL is so awesome.
It's crazy good.
FLCL is so awesome.
All right, guys.
Look.
I should go to bed. I gotta go climbing with Troy in the morning.
Whoa!
Holy epic!
Look, do we wanna lighten up before we? Is there a funny story? Is there anything we can do?
Well, we can just talk about the fact that we're ending the podcast soon and just see where that wanders. But I think for the editor, Mr. Brody, I mean Rajesh.
Right. Yeah.
Rajesh Brody.
What do we think about parts to this? This has been a super long one, hasn't it? This is like a fucking 4-hour marathon. I feel like
segmenting it because it's like this last like quarter was probably about 8,000 times more interesting than the rest, at least from of a certain kind of interest, I think. But then
It's
there was
different vibes. Different
Yeah,
vibes.
different
This was like
vibes.
substantive. The previous one was like vibes
Yeah.
and good, cozy listening.
What if we released it all in one episode and just called it Graveyard Shift?
I like that. I do like that, but I get
I-
really
I-
scared about the 4-hour timestamp.
It's
Like,
not
that
4
shit's
hours.
just-
It's 2 hours and 40 minutes. It should be.
Oh, okay.
And
not as
wait,
bad.
2
oh, it's
hours
three,
and
it's
40
three
minutes?
hours. It's 3 hours and 15 minutes.
That's pretty long. And I think we could partition it from like the chill stuff, and then the somewhat serious stuff.
I think
don't
that's fine.
fucking know.
I think that's fine.
Let's do a shout out to Henry Gualtieri, and
Yeah.
also
I want to do
Someone
a shout out to
Big shout
He's
out.
got his stream on. He's looking at every frame of painting. I will say the Chuck Jones, the evolution of an artist video essay. It's actually pretty good. I'm a big Chuck Jones head.
Oh, these video essays are one of the good ones.
I don't even know what the fuck this is, but hey, shout out.
I want
Yeah,
to.
every frame of painting. He's pretty decent.
So we've shouted Henry.
Shout out to every frame of painting.
Shout out to
We've
every
we know
frame
you're a
of
fan.
picture, every frame of picture.
Please, we've shouted Henrique
Please.
multiple
Shout out
times.
to every frame of Steven.
But I think I'd also like to give a shout out to Joe Scheidt, who
Hi, Joe
left a
Scheidt.
comment
Yeah,
on
Joe
Synecdoche,
Scheidt.
New
Yeah,
York.
Joe
He left
Scheidt.
a very nice, positive comment.
Oh really?
We appreciate you listening.
Wait, what did Joe Scheidt say?
He said, I believe, great discussion, more of this, please,
What on what?
on Synecdoche, New York.
Oh, so true. Synecdoche, New York is easily one of like our most. It's one of the ones where we actually are like truly expanding understanding in like a very real way.
Our geopolitical terrain is
Geopolitical-
expanded.
Yeah. The Overton window is fucking.
Looking for any more positive comments. The other ones are so far back, you don't deserve a shout out. If you want a shout out,
You must
Comment.
comment.
on our
Henrique,
next
Henrique,
upload.
you're unreal. If you we want to give you a signed postcard.
yeah. Also, Henrique,
That's
As
not. That's like
mentioned,
not
That
even a
would
joke.
cost so much money to mail to all of us
we
to sign.
we are going to do the Conformist.
We will.
And so, and I'll tell you what, to the other viewers, if anyone's listening to this, you know,
fucking
and
comment.
you want us to do a movie that you care about, you let us know, and
Whoa,
we will
so
float
true.
that idea.
Yeah, we're small
Wait, did
enough.
Henrique request something?
Yeah. An Italian film by Bertolucci called The Conformist.
Oh yeah. I actually really do want to do that one. I haven't watched it. It's been something I've been wanting to watch for a very long time.
Yeah, we all
So-
like your request, Henrique.
So if this gets uploaded before that, just know that that's on its way. It's in the works.
Works.
on the weekly pod.
You know,
Weekly pod next week.
Yeah,
Next week,
Next
The
week.
Conformist.
maybe Sunday.
Conformist.
Who knows? If anyone's free, because Troy's free Sunday. We'll see.
Hold on, that might be it.
Maybe we just call it. It's fucking late for me.
Yeah, let's call it.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Yeah,
All right,
goodbye. Thank you for
goodbye.
listening.
Much love.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.